His name means Flower Prince. Xochipilli, god of music, dance, poetry, and sacred ecstasy, was once honored with song and bloom across the Nahua world. But unlike the gods of war and fire, his story was never carved in stone. It was sung, danced, and scattered like petals on the wind. Today, few remember him. Fewer still speak his name. This episode is not a retelling of a lost myth. It is an offering, woven from what remains. A story built from ritual, symbol, and reverence. A tribute to joy, to beauty, to the divine spark of creation. This is the story of Xochipilli, as it might have been remembered. The rains had not come. The maize had withered. The songs that once echoed through the valley were silent. In the village of stone and smoke, grief settled like dust, thick, unmoving, and familiar. They had buried warriors. They had burned offerings. They had waited. But the gods of war and rain had turned their faces away. No one danced. No one sang. Even the children played in silence. Among them lived a young herbalist named Etzal. He was not a priest, nor a warrior, nor a leader. But he remembered rhythm. In his dreams he heard drums. In the wind he felt patterns. And in the soil he sensed something stirring. Etzal left the village at dawn, carrying only a woven satchel and a bone flute he no longer played. He walked beyond the terraces, past the dry riverbed, into the hills where the old gods were said to sleep. There, among the rocks, he found a vine blooming out of season, its petals shaped like suns, its scent thick with memory. He knelt, whispered thanks, and prepared the flower as he had been taught, crushed, steeped, inhaled. The world bent. Colour returned, not to the land, but to the air. Glyphs shimmered in the sky. Music pulsed beneath his skin, and seated before him, crowned in blossoms and surrounded by radiant vines, was a figure he had never seen, but somehow knew. Xochipilli. The Flower Prince did not speak. He did not need to. His presence was rhythm. His gaze was melody. His breath was bloom. Etzal wept, not from fear, but from recognition. Etzal returned to the village at dusk. His steps were light, his eyes bright, his breath steady. He carried no maize, no medicine, no message, only rhythm. He began to weave again, but not with thread. He wove patterns into the dust with his feet. He tapped rhythms on clay pots. He hummed melodies that had no words. At first, the villagers watched in silence. Some turned away. Others listened. A child laughed. An elder tapped their fingers. The silence began to crack. Etzal did not preach. He did not explain. He simply created. Over the days that followed, others joined him. A drum was found. A flute was mended. Flowers were gathered, not for mourning, but for adornment. The village, once grey, began to shimmer. One evening, as the fire danced and voices rose, a figure stepped into the circle. crowned in blossoms, wrapped in vines, radiant and silent. Xochipilli had come. No one questioned, no one bowed. They sang louder. He danced with them, not above, not apart, but among. His steps matched theirs, his joy amplified theirs. And as the night deepened, the valley bloomed. At dawn he was gone. In his place, a grove of sacred plants, vines blooming in impossible colors, and a rhythm that lingered in the air. Etzal never spoke of the vision again. He didn't need to. The village remembered. And somewhere in the hills, the Flower Prince smiled. Xochipilli, whose name means Flower Prince in Nahuatl, was a revered deity in the Aztec pantheon, patron of music, dance, poetry, art, and sacred pleasure. Unlike gods of war or agriculture, his domain was ephemeral yet essential. The joy that binds community, the rhythm that stirs the soul, the beauty that makes life worth living. He was closely associated with hallucinogenic plants, including morning glory, tobacco, and mushrooms, which were used in ritual contexts to induce ecstatic states. These substances weren't recreational. They were sacred tools for communion with the divine. Xochipilli's presence was invoked not through sacrifice, but through song, movement, and altered perception. His image appears in codices and sculptures, often seated in a meditative pose, surrounded by glyphs representing flowers, music, and sacred plants. One famous statue shows his body covered in symbols of divine intoxication, suggesting a trance-like state of communion. Xochipilli was also linked to Piltzin-Tecutli, the young sun god, and sometimes considered a manifestation of him. This connection places Xochipilli within the broader cycle of renewal and vitality. His joy was not frivolous, but cosmic. He was part of the Ahuiateteo, a group of gods representing excess and pleasure. Yet his role was more benevolent than indulgent. Festivals like Tlaxochimaco and Mikhail Huitontli honored him with offerings of flowers, music, and dance. These were communal acts of celebration, reinforcing the idea that joy itself was sacred. He was especially venerated by artistic guilds and noble houses, who saw in him a divine mirror of their creative pursuits. Though no narrative myths survive, Xochipilli's cultural imprint is profound. He represents a worldview where beauty, rhythm, and ecstasy are not distractions, but pathways to the divine. Though Xochipilli's myth was never written, his essence, joy, art, ecstasy, and sacred beauty, appears in many traditions. Dionysus from Greek mythology was the god of wine, theatre, and ecstatic ritual. He arrived from the wild to awaken joy and chaos, often through altered states and communal celebration. Saraswati from Hindu tradition is the goddess of wisdom, music, and speech. She represents the serene side of artistic expression, invoked through performance and learning. Bragi from Norse mythology was the god of poetry and eloquence. Revered by storytellers, he embodied the power of memory and the spoken word. Oshun from Yoruba belief is the Orisha of love, beauty, and sweet waters. Her rituals involve music, adornment, and emotional release. She heals through joy. Benzaiten, from Japanese folklore, is a goddess of music, eloquence, and flowing water. Often shown with a lute, she bridges the sacred and the artistic. Across cultures, joy is sacred, beauty is divine, and the ecstatic is a path to the gods. Xochipilli stands among them, not forgotten, but waiting to be remembered. Some gods demand sacrifice, others arrive with thunder. But Xochipilli waits in bloom, quiet, radiant, and ready to be remembered. If this myth stayed with you, share it with someone who listens for rhythm in silence. Like the video, subscribe for more stories from the margins of legend, and comment below. Which forgotten god should we honor next? Join our Patreon for early access, behind-the-scenes breakdowns, and to see your name in future episodes as a supporter. Check out the affiliate links below for curated books and resources tied to this myth. And if you'd like to help expand our mythic library, you can order directly from our registry. Thanks for watching. More gods, more monsters, more myth. Coming soon.